Minnesota and obviously whatever might happen in Houston. And then Ian Book chosen today by the Saints. What do you make of all those picks and what that might actually lead to in the next coming weeks and months?
Well, it felt like there were some quarterbacks that weren't going to get picked this weekend, that they were still hovering around the draft. And that started with Aaron Rodgers, and everything that broke with that is him not being happy right on Thursday night. And we're talking about that. We have the Deshaun Watson thing hanging out there. What's going to happen with him going forward? Houston makes a selection there at Davis Mills, and then you add, Kirk Cousins. To me, it feels, the more you look at that pick of Kellen Mond, as Charles had mentioned, they needed a backup. They didn't have anybody, so they had to get one. That feels more like it's a safer situation there for Kirk Cousins. But the quarterback storylines that exist, Ian Book, you mentioned with the Saints, he gets thrown into that three-man competition now to see who takes over for Drew Brees. So there's always going to be quarterback storylines in this draft. And CD, I'll give you one other one here. We talked about Sam Darnold for a long time. The Jets keep him? Do they trade him? They end up moving on. And in this draft, man, they went to work to get their new quarterback a lot of opportunities and a lot of weapons.
Yeah, and it's fun to watch for that reason, that now when you draft a young quarterback, you give him a chance. Because we always talk about, I go back to Matt Ryan getting picked, and everybody said, don't take Matt Ryan now. The Falcons are in disarray. He won't have a chance. But they went ahead and traded back and got to Sam Baker at left tackle, and in free agency got Michael the Burner Turner. And that propelled them to a playoff run his first year. That's what it feels like to me the Jets are trying to do. Surround their guy with that talent. And Jacksonville had more talent on the offensive side for Trevor Lawrence coming in than maybe people realized, and they tried to add to that as well.
Yeah, but you said it, Rich. I mean, Total Access is a daily show. Good Morning Football's daily show. The Rich Eisen. Rodgers. We've got our topic until training camp. Well, let's go.
Let's go. No doubt about that. So for all of us here, I want to thank Charlie Yook, who, in his usual humble way, giving me a whole bunch of names to make sure that I would say at the very end of our draft coverage, left himself off. We love you, Charlie Yook. You are the king of spring, and you nailed it, and we love being at the tip of the spear for everything you try to do with this draft. And as you could hear, Cleveland does in fact rock. It was great to be here in the state of Ohio. So for everybody here on this set and everybody who put everything together with Charlie leading the charge, we sign off from Cleveland at the 2021 draft.
Well said, Rich Eisen, and a big hat tip to you, to DJ, to Charles, to Schrags, everybody who was a part of our coverage from Cleveland. Absolutely phenomenal work once again. Great to be back on site from Cleveland, Ohio. Great to be back with David Hawk and Mark Ross here as we try to assess the team now that best set themselves up after these 3 days of the 2021 NFL Draft. Who is that team for you, David?
For me, it's the Jets, hands down. I love the quarterback pick. I love what they've done, setting up that entire organization around him with a defensive-oriented head coach, but then Mike LaFleur is the offensive coordinator. Then you get him an offensive lineman. Then you get him Elijah Moore, a receiver to throw the football to. And I love what Charles Davis said, and DJ kind of echoed the same thing. This team is ready to go and win right now. Now, Zach Wilson, he's got a big learning curve ahead of him. He's got to go play in the National Football League. But this offensive system is set up in such a way that it is very quarterback-friendly. We talk about that a lot. What does that actually mean? That means the throws are going to be there. You're going to have guys open. They're going to create offense for you. You don't have to get back there, make the right protection call every time, make the perfect throw every time. This is going to be hand-tailored for you. He wanted to play in this system. I love what they surrounded him with. Even the running back Michael Carter in the 4th round, he's going to plug right into this system and do very well. I'm really excited to watch the Jets play football this year.
Yeah, I agree, David. I mean, you talked about all the picks, and I'm excited about the Jets' ability to get these young guys in and have them grow together in this offense. I played in this offense. I understand how player-friendly. We talk about how quarterback-friendly is, but it is running back-friendly. It is wide receiver-friendly because the answers to the test are given to you. There aren't any adjustments that receivers have to make. You run what they tell you to do, and if you're open, you get the ball. If you're not, you don't. There really is no thinking, so you get the ability to play fast. A guy like Elijah Moore is someone I'm super excited about to see in this offense because he can do it all. Yes, he's going to be a monster from the slot, but I do think in this offense specifically, he will be able to play outside because of how much cut split the offense calls for. And you talked about Michael Carter in the zone running scheme, his ability to get outside and be able to make a cut and take it anywhere on the field. They really did a bang-up job of getting the picks they got and a ton of value at each selection early in the rounds.
Look, guys, I like what the Jets did as well, but I'm looking at the Chicago Bears, and that's because they set themselves up on the field with the trading up to get Justin Fields, but also off the field with the job security of head coach Matt Nagy and GM Ryan Pace for actually making this move. Coming into the weekend, I said there's no way that they could roll with Andy Dalton next year, knowing that there's a little tenuous situation with their job and that they would be the one to make the move. They did. They got up in there. They got Justin Fields, who I think should have been the third pick, if not the second pick of the draft. So now you set yourself up for the future in Chicago. I think Justin Fields is perfect to save that Chicago franchise with the wins and in the front office.
And I think Cleveland stole the show, not just as the host city, but I thought they did a phenomenal job in this draft. Started early and carried throughout. Much more on that as we continue. Now time for some way too early predictions here. And we're going to start with you guys' picks here for the Offensive Rookie of the Year. DC, who you got?
Well, for me, when I look at it on the defensive side, I'm going to say Trevon Merrick. But I know that we're talking about offense, and I just can't help myself. I get so excited watching the Raiders, and we finally have a free safety that can play. I'm just going to throw that out there and say, Trevon, you guys go take the offense away, because I'm stoked that they're at least going to play some type of defense in Las Vegas.
All right, what do you got, Hawk?
I'm going with Trevor Lawrence, man. I mean, I think we got bored with talking about his scouting report and, you know, how good he was. There's other quarterbacks. There were other storylines, who was going to go at 3. But the reality is he really was heads and shoulder above the rest of the quarterbacks. And so for him, I think he's a guy that's going to come in, shock the league a lot early on and say, oh, this guy really is who we thought he was.
Well, this one's easy for me. I'm going with Jamar Chase. Not only the best receiver in this draft, but really the best receiver I've scouted since the 2011 draft when A.J. Green and Julio Jones came out, and particularly because he's getting back with Joe Burrow, where he averaged 21 yards per catch, 20 and had 20 touchdowns. Of course, Joe Burrow won the Heisman Trophy, set all kinds of records, so they've already got that chemistry and synergy. And also, you got to think Justin Jefferson was on that team last year, Pro Bowl this year, and Jamar Chase was a guy with Justin Jefferson who was set rookie records for receiving yards. So I expect Jamar Chase, who I think is more talented than Justin, to even take it another step and win that Rookie of the Year.
And look, guys, let's not fault David. Look, we can all get excited about Trevon Merrick here. He's the top safety in the class, and he goes in the second round. Great win for Mike Mayock. Do you want to give us an Offensive Rookie of the Year now?
Okay, so, yeah, Offensive Rookie of the Year is hands down Kyle Pitts. You know, I was talking to some guys in Atlanta, and I was trying to get them to just tell me that they were going to take him. I was like, just draft this guy. Your offense is going to be unbelievable. You possibly could even go to the Super Bowl with him. So they wouldn't give it up. They wouldn't say they were going to pick him. They were just saying, maybe we'll take a quarterback. No, this is the guy. Kyle Pitts is a stud. He's just going to change the entire game. I mean, think about how easy it is to play offense, you know, with Darren Waller, Travis Kelce, George Kittle. This guy's going to jump right into that group and be dynamic for the Atlanta Falcons.
100% agree there. Mark, back to you now for a Defensive Rookie of the Year. We know David's.
Yeah, right. Well, this for me is Jamin Davis, the linebacker from Kentucky, and this is the perfect situation of talent but fit. Going with Washington, where you've got Chase Young, Deron Payne, Montez Sweat up front, who are going to create havoc. And what Jamin Davis does best is just scan the field. He is explosive, he is fast, he plays hard. And this will be kind of reminiscent of Ron Rivera's defense, where he had Luke Kuechly as a rookie. He won Rookie of the Year on defense. Expect to see a similar impact for Jamin Davis, just making 100 tackles and just all over the field.
Yeah, I'm going with Micah Parsons down in Dallas out of Penn State. This is a guy who is so versatile. He could play any part of the defense. I mean, he could play inside backer, outside backer. He could put his hand in the dirt and rush the edge. I mean, you name it. And the thing I like best about him is that he is so raw. Only played 2 years of football at Penn State. Even coming out of high school, he was like the #1 player in the country, 5-star defensive end, and he was raw then. There's so much untapped potential there. I think he's really going to be able to put it together with this Dan Quinn defense and really shock a lot of people.
And back to my comment from earlier, I think Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah going to the Browns in the second round is an opportunity to be the DROY there at 52. All right, with that, though, let's get to some of the surprising moments of the draft, right? The Texans were the last team to join the party in Cleveland as part of the Laramie Tunsil trade. Houston's first moment of the NFL draft didn't come until the third round. Pick 67, and they take the 8th quarterback off the board. Stanford's Davis Mills doubling perhaps as one of the most surprising moments of the draft. Andrew Hawkins, what moment was the most surprising for you?
Hey, you hit it on the head. It was the Texans pick right there. And the reason why it was so shocking was that it was like the first time the Texans have joined us in the party of saying, hey, we don't think Deshaun Watson is going to be your quarterback next year, right? And you better do something about it. They hadn't had pre-draft visits. This wasn't a guy that they were keeping under wraps. It was their first pick of the draft, and they went with the best quarterback available because they finally understood and realized, hey, we got to make sure we shore up this position for the future.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I just can't believe that the Bears were able to get Justin Fields. You know, for me, that's just like, I mean, they're surprised. You know, when you look at the pro day and Kyle Shanahan standing there, we're watching Justin Fields throw. Matt Nagy's standing like 5 feet away from him, just watching, just saying, oh, maybe we get a chance. Who knows what could happen? But I love this. This saved Matt Nagy's job. And we talked about it the other day, Mark. I mean, this is an entire franchise changer. So for me, now the ball's in Matt Nagy's court. Honestly, like Bill Lazor started to do some good things with Mitch Trubisky. But man, this is on you now, because if your offense can't figure it out with this kid, is all the talent that he has and the winning pedigree that he has, then you got some issues. But he's a dynamic player. I'm so happy that he went there.
Yeah, for me, sorry about this one, David, but for me, this is the Raiders pick of Alex Leatherwood there, who was quite a surprise. You know, when I had draft meetings with my scouts, you'd always try to guess what the biggest surprise would be. You never get it. And then that draft they came, it was a wow. Well, this was the wow pick as well, especially in light of when you saw where the other tackles and guards went, a similar value, all the way up until the top of the third. When you're talking about a Jalen Mayfield from Michigan going up there, I thought Alex Leatherwood was more of that kind of talent. But this kind of goes in line with the wow. With the Raiders have done this before when they took Cleveland Farrell, the DE from Clemson, at 4 a few years ago when Josh Allen from Kentucky was still on the board. So this was the biggest wow surprise for me.
Guys, I'm going with the bombshell of the Aaron Rodgers news on day one of the draft, which was almost a year to the day, right? That they, from a year ago, that they took a quarterback in the first round. Maybe we shouldn't have been so surprised then. We know he was at the Derby today, didn't want to talk to NBC Sports. Mike Tirico said he was disappointed that this news came out, but the news is that Aaron Rodgers is so disgruntled with the Packers right now that he might not return to Green Bay. Amazing. And the Packers, you know, I guess we shouldn't be surprised that they took a corner in the first round, right? But we should be surprised. They did finally draft a wide receiver, and it's an A. Rodgers. It's Amari Rodgers. So maybe they're trying to make a play for Aaron to be a little bit happier here. A-Rod to A-Rod for the Packers next season. So there's some surprises for us. We got a lot more. We saw those 2 new quarterbacks joining the division. Lay out your grades here for us, Mark, for those 4 teams in the AFC East.
Well, in the AFC East, I'm going with the Dolphins with an A+, the Jets with an A, the Bills with a B+, and the Patriots with a B. And the reason why I went with the Dolphins over the Jets address most of their needs to help Zach Wilson out, which is commendable. But the Dolphins address needs for Tua, but also on the defense. They got Jalen Waddell there in the first, maybe the most explosive receiver, but also in the second round, Liam Eichenberg, the tackle from Notre Dame, to help Tua. But then they got Jalen Phillips, who I thought was the best pass rusher of the draft, all the way at number 18. It didn't have to reach for him. But then also in the second round, they got Javon Holland, possibly the best safety. So they address needs on both sides of the ball with really, really good players, and that's why they get the edge over the Jets.
I also like the pick of Hunter Long there in the third round, joining a very talented tight end room already in Miami. Let's move now to the NFC East here, Mark Ross. What are your grades there?
Well, I give former Giants an A+ there. We'll give Washington a B+. We'll give the Eagles a C+, and Dallas a C. And the reason why I went with the Giants is because they got players, but they also accumulated picks for next year. As we went into it, you know, a little bit of jokes about them never trading down. This year they traded down a few times, traded back up in there. So get Kadarius Toney, who I think will help Daniel Jones. And that Daniel Jones, one of his weaknesses is getting the ball out of his hand to his first read. Toney, you can get to him the ball, and he does his best work after the catch. But also they addressed the pass rushing need later on with Azeez Ojulari. Many people had him in the first round, brings a lot of energy and quickness off the ball. So I think the Giants definitely had the edge because they got players, but they also got picks in the future.
Yeah, and then doubled up their pass rush presence, going with Ellerson Smith out of Northern Iowa later in the draft in round 4. We'll have North Division grades coming up for you here on NFL Total Access. But now, let's check out some draft tweets presented by Bud Light. We'll start with the number 1 overall pick. Looking pretty good right there in that Jacksonville teal. There you go, Duval County. And how about Trey Lance taking a look at those 49er Lombardis? Where are they going to put mine? I wonder if that's what's on his mind there. And then Mac Jones, newest quarterback For the Patriots, walking in between owner Robert Kraft and his son there, Jonathan Kraft, taking it all in at Gillette Stadium. And how about Hawk crushing it on Twitter as usual? All of a sudden, every prospect ran a 4.3. Yeah, they did. Okay, just accept it. It happened here in this age of no combine workouts. All right, Hawk, let's use your tweet there to kick off your top 10 wide receiver fits following this draft. How does that look for you?
Yeah, I mean, I got a good list of receivers. This is a deep wide receiver class. I got Jalen Waddle as my number one fit. For a lot of reasons, which we'll get into. Jamar Chase, who is the most talented receiver in the draft. I have him as fit number 2. There's a couple of reasons there that we can talk about. Elijah Moore down the line there. I really like Rondale Moore in the Arizona offense and his fit in between A.J. Green and D-Hop. So there's a lot of players there, and I think that it was a receiver-heavy draft, and a lot of teams cashed out.
No question. Let's start right there at the top with Jalen Waddle joining his former college teammate Tua Tagovailoa. What do you love about this combo?
Well, number one, the former teammates. That chemistry matters, and we've seen that theme with a couple of the draft selections. But number two is he's an explosive player who is a route runner. And I feel like in this day and age of the NFL and the passing game, the route runners, the guys who come in who are advanced in the route running, understand head, eyes, change of direction, changing up the way that things were typically done, are the ones who do better earlier. Think of OBJ. Think of Justin Jefferson. The reason why they did so well is because they're already refined in separating in man-to-man coverage. And that's what I think is special about Jalen Waddle.
Yeah, Hawk, I love that combination. And you missed your error because I timed you when you came out. You weren't 4.3, so you should have just been born a little bit later. But anyway, my definite go-to is Jamar Chase going back with Joe Burrow. Although Tua and Waddle played together, there was nobody in history that had a season like when Burrow and Chase were together. And you got, where Burrow won the Heisman. He set all kinds of records. Chase averaged 21 yards a catch for 20 touchdowns. So not only did they just play together, they may have had the most prolific season of a quarterback and receiver ever. And I expect that to continue there in Cincinnati.
Hawk, back to some of these fits that you really liked. The Giants had the top 3 wideouts go off the board before they were on the clock at number 11. They trade back and still get a talented dude, Hawk, and Kadarius Toney from Florida.
Love Kadarius Toney. We talked about it earlier. He's a guy that gets the ball in his hand and the magic happens. For a quarterback like Daniel Jones, who is young, we still have some questions, right? We don't know exactly what we have in Daniel Jones yet. For Kadarius Toney, you could throw him the long bomb, you could throw him intermediate routes, you could throw him third-level routes. It doesn't matter. Get him a screen, and he'll go get the yards, go get the yak, go get the special plays, and that's what the Giants need. It's a perfect fit for him.
Yeah, Hawk, you and Mark nailed it with Kadarius. And what I love about him is he used to play quarterback, and he actually worked out with Daniel Jones when he was, down there in quarterback country at a little quarterback camp. And I think they have some chemistry. So that's really cool that, we see all these teammates coming together, but now this is a little bit outside the box. So I love what he does, but also because of what Mark laid out, a guy that you can just get the ball out of your hands and into his hands and see what he can do with it and kind of maybe bump up that completion percentage for Daniel so he doesn't hold the ball as long, help the offensive line out, help the run game out, helps everybody. I love the pick.
Toney on the all-separation team of the wide receivers in this class. He can get open in a hurry. Way to work there, Hawk and guys. All right, way to work to our pal Run Rich Run here. Rich Eisen, great job getting Run Rich Run returning as part of the draft. Since 2005, Rich has been running a 40 to raise money for St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. And this year's run taking place at SoFi Stadium and featured Rich and several NFL legends. Rich, respectable, 6.03 on the 40. Fastest time, though, was from Michael Vick, who ran a 4.72. Way to work. It's been a record year for donations as well. More than $1.75 million to benefit St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. You can donate right now. Go to NFL.com/RunRichRun. All right, it's time to reorder the quarterback selections in this year's draft because the order in which they were picked is not the order in which they fit. We'll explain. But first, you haven't arrived, not officially, until you get welcomed by the hitmaker who just dropped a new album Friday, DJ Khaled.
Hey, yo, NFL and everybody that just got drafted, congratulations. God is the great.
Comparison to Josh Allen is a great one there for Trey Lance. All right, Hawk, we're coming back to you because it is time to get back to the draft grades. And we are talking North Division draft grades. We're going to start with, well, the AFC Hawk. Played for half the teams in this division, so lay out the grades for us there, Hawk.
All right, we're going with the AFC North here. I'm going top of the division. I'm going with the Cleveland Browns with an A+. Number 2, I'm going with the Steelers with a B+. Then I'm going with the Bengals with a B, and then pulling up the rear, I got the Ravens with a B- because they didn't address the tackle situation. But that's what my grades are.
All right, double down here for us on Cleveland. Why did they win the day?
Yeah, you know what? It's a position of luxury that the Cleveland Browns aren't used to being in. When you have a talented football team, you can go get the best value, right? And they were sitting there at 26. They got Greg Newsome, the cornerback, who was an incredible corner, one of the top-rated guys. He was just sitting there for them to take. They bolster up that secondary, and because they're knowing that to get to the Super Bowl, they have to go through places like the Ravens, go through places like Kansas City. So that defense has to be top-notch. And then Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, I mean, that was a guy I had them pegged to pick in the first round, and he was available at 52. I mean, talk about luxury of riches, Rhett. The Cleveland Browns knocked it out of the park, and they're in an incredible situation post-draft.
And by the way, if you're not following Tom Pelissero right now on Twitter, you're doing it wrong. He's got all the undrafted free agent signings like Marvin Wilson, one of the top undrafted guys going to the Browns. $30K signing bonus, 162 guaranteed. Way to work there. All right, Hawk, let's switch to the NFC North. What do you got?
All right, on the North, I got the Bears. We talked about them all show. They knocked it out of the park, got their quarterback of the future. They shored up the offensive line. So great job by Matt Nagy and the Bears. Behind them, I have the Vikings, who also had a really, really good draft. I thought the Lions did a great job. The bottom of the division, I had the Packers, because they went and got that corner in the first round, and it still just doesn't make sense to me. Understanding it's a need, but you're trying to keep a hold of your MVP Hall of Fame quarterback, and for years you haven't done what he's asked. So that's why they're pulling up the rear.
Yeah, I got you. All right, let's remind you that we've got the West coming up next. West grades are coming up here in just a little bit. And with that, now it is time for a little Ask the Aces presented by Ace. And Mark Ross, you are up first here. Do you think the Packers did enough in the draft to fill all of their needs? Harmony's asking.
I do, despite what the Hawk just said there. I think they did. They needed a corner bad. That was their number one situation that they had to address. They got Eric Stokes, the big, fast corner from Florida. But they also did help Aaron Rodgers with the center from Ohio State, Josh Myers, so they lost Corey Lindsey. But also, then they got in the third round, Aaron's play cousin Amari Rodgers from Clemson, the receiver, who I think will make him have a different sort of receiver than Devontae Adams and those other guys, big, strong guys like they are. He's more of a get the ball in your hands running back style.
Yeah, I had a nice Senior Bowl
It'll make somebody
happy.
happy.
Yeah, there you go, Hawk. All right, here. This question's for you. Matt wants to know, who was the most underrated wide receiver pick in the draft?
That's a great question. I have two answers. My first answer is every receiver who was 5'9" and under. There were 7 taken in the first 4 rounds. That is legendary, game-changing. Welcome to the new school, guys. The second answer I'm going to give you is Anthony Schwartz with the Cleveland Browns. 4.2 speed. He is a perfect fit for what they need. They have OBJ, they have Jarvis, they have Higgins. They don't have the person to be the complete deep threat and really pop the top off of the defense. They now have that, and they have so many weapons to go alongside of them.
All right, DC, this one's for you. James Mack says, of the teams who drafted a quarterback, which one will have the best supporting cast if they start week 1? Good question.
Yeah, that is a good question. The key is the
positions together here and get your top 5 defensive fits following this draft.
Yeah, right. That's not the best player, but the best fits. Number 1 is Jalen Phillips, the end from Miami, who goes to Miami. Number 2, Jamin Davis, the Kentucky linebacker, going to Washington. Number 3, Asante Samuel Jr. going to the Chargers. Number 4, Joe Tryon from Washington going to Tampa Bay. And number 5, Pat Surtain Jr. going to Denver. I had Phillips up there just because he's the best pass rusher.
Let's dig in here with Asante Samuel. Talked about the bloodlines with his dad, who played with the Patriots and with the Eagles. And Marco, why do you like that fit for him there with the Chargers?
Well, with the Chargers, they have a really talented team, top to bottom, but one area they are kind of lacking is corner. And when you look at a player, you look at his physical ability, which I think Asante Samuel has with the quickness, the suddenness, the ball skills, but also the mental. And with the bloodlines, with the preparation with his dad playing, that mentally he's ready to go and step into that on the field, but also handle the big picture off the field. So when you study and we evaluate players, we take both of those things into account. And I think of a lot of these guys, Asante Samuel really had the best package of those. So if he has to step in and start right away, I think mentally on the field he can handle it.
I completely agree with the Asante Samuel take. They said he was a little smaller, which is why he slid a little bit. But I think that'll be the trend that kicks it off, because what happens was there was at one time 5'10" was the prototypical cornerback. The receivers got huge. Now the corners got huge, and now the receivers are getting smaller because the big guys don't have quickness. Asante Samuel has that, and he'll be able to guard these guys with the lateral quickness and the agility.
Yeah, and hat tip to Elijah Molden, the Washington DB who came off the board late in the third round of the Denver Broncos, son of former Saints first-round pick Alex Molden, another one of those bloodlines at the position. All right, back to you, Mark, here with your fit for the Super Bowl champion Buccaneers, going with the pass rusher Joe Tryon.
Yeah, Red, I love this because the Tampa Bay drafted into their strengths of why they had the playoff run and won the Super Bowl. And that was their D-line with JPP and Shaq Barrett, Vita Vea. So now Joe Tryon, you put him in the mix with those guys and just even make it more scary. I benefited from that with the Giants, our 2 Super Bowl runs where we had the Strahans and JPPs and OCs of the world. So this is similar to me what Tampa Bay did with drafting Joe Tryon to just fortify that position and make it even more scary.
Bucks nailed it there.
Yeah,
at
Mark, I think
Go ahead,
yeah,
David.
No, I'm just going to say I think Mark nailed it. I mean, when I was watching this guy on film, he looks like OC, like a longer, like a bit thicker OC Umanura. And JPP played with him. You obviously had that defensive line. We had the benefit of watching these guys. So I think that's going to be a perfect fit for them. I really like this kid.
All right, David, we are pulling out the red pen once again and getting your grades for the West divisions. And we will start with Baby Bro's division there in the AFC West. Unveil the grades for us.
Yeah, speaking of Baby Bro, I shed a tear every time Asante Samuel and Patrick Surtain, these guys are getting drafted. I played against their dads. That's how old I am. But let's just go down the list. So we got the Raiders with an A, obviously. I mean, what else are you going to do?
Duh.
Chargers, I'm telling you, I love that pick by Asante. Chargers at A-, Broncos B+, and the Chiefs with a B. But I think it starts with Leatherwood. We've talked about him. He probably wasn't everyone's top tackle. I'll just tell you, they targeted this guy. They like the fact that he can run block and get after guys. And they think that Tom Cable did a great job with Colton Miller. Colton Miller wasn't a big fan. There weren't a lot of big fans of him either when they drafted him. So I think Leatherwood will do a good job. And then Merrick, I really like this guy. I mentioned it earlier. I think he's going to play free safety. He doesn't